Now let's do a little more scholarly approach to civil war. Based on the conditions of civil wars in the past, you can identify the features that make civil war likely. How many of these check the box today? Trust in the national government is low and trending lower. Just covered that. Yep, check. Respect for the national government is low and trending lower. Check. You have an armed population? Check. 2 roughly evenly divided partisan factions? Check. Each faction embodies a distinctive identity? Check. Each wants the other to tolerate policies that it detests, and each fears the prospect of the other taking power for that reason? Check. 7, a rapid shift from democratic action to autocracy or anarchy also portends civil war. And we've definitely seen autocracy with the COVID situation. Anarchy, we're seeing that in our cities to a great extent. So all 7 of these check the boxes. Most people might say, well, this could never happen in our own country. It already happened in 1861. And that was secession. This might have a different feel to it. But when you interview people who lived through civil wars, they typically, none of them say, most of them say, we didn't see it coming. We didn't see it coming. We have half of this country believes it's imminent. This thing about each faction, the 2 factions here, representing a unique identity, this doesn't have to be partisan. It can be religious, it can be geographical, it can be ideological, it can be class struggle, it can be sex, race, gender, surrounding a cult of personality. There are many different ways to have these sort out into 2 opposing factions or groups. It is partisan to a great extent, but let's think about these 2 opposing factors in America. You have 2 groups, one that waves the American flag, one that waves more so the rainbow flag. One that is, we are the more Christian group, the other that are adamant secularists. One is more rural, the other more urban. One are filled with Trump supporters and the other the anti-Trump people. These guys are predominantly white. The majority is the white race, although they don't yet embrace that as their identity. And I say yet because I think they're being goaded into doing that, because this side is a strong tribal identity of being gender identity, race, gender, and sexual orientation identifies that left-wing ideological party. And because of this latter point, by the way, the fault lines in American culture of where oppression and grievances have laid in the past over race, black and white most predominantly, with the history of slavery and civil rights. You could see developing in America something akin to or an echo of what happened in Zimbabwe or South Africa. And you see a racial sort of cultural Marxism, but utilizing racial animus. Civil war is emerging in a context of being deprived by design, as we've previously seen. Economic catastrophe, the collapse of the Western financial system. You got food and energy supply shock, being deprived, pandemic, cyber attack, World War III. If all this is happening, tempers start to shorten, right? People start to view things in a more radicalized tone and viewing the opponents as that which must be defeated. So I hate to break it to you, but the polarization historically on the cycles doesn't get resolved during the crisis season. So we've got to be ready spiritually to find that peace and tolerance and the charity toward our fellow man of all races. And it intensifies either with just more and more civil war or with the one gaining the predominance over the other and crushing it, squashing it. So one side defeating the other. So scenario 1 is in America, you got red versus blue worsening until the civil conflict ensues. Or scenario 2, one side is victorious, punishes the other, and wages war externally in a unified manner. Peaceful gridlock, unlikely during a crisis season. The crisis calls from both sides the great struggle and mobilization to defeat the enemy.